Day 8 now of the search for that missing Malaysian airplane. Now, before we talk about the latest theories, which we will, let's give you a timeline of the week's events. Last Saturday, almost a week ago now, March 8th, Malaysia Airlines says that this Boeing 777 lost contact with air traffic control at around 1:30 in the morning. Also last Saturday, that's when we learned that 2 passengers were traveling on stolen passports, fueling speculation of a terrorist attack then. Sunday, March 9th, the U.S. sent FBI agents to assist in this investigation. And Malaysia raised the first of several suggestions that the plane may have veered radically off course. Monday, March 10th, authorities doubled the search radius to 100 nautical miles. Tuesday, March 11th, investigators identified the 2 men with the stolen passports as young Iranians who are believed to be illegal immigrants, not terrorists. Wednesday, March 12th, an unidentified object was detected on radar that some thought could have been a piece of the plane. It was not. Yesterday, March 13th, the Wall Street Journal reports that U.S. investigators suspected that the plane flew on for 4 hours after its last known contact. All of that brings us to today. A Malaysian government official is saying that someone with aviation skills was responsible for the change in course. Investigators also wondering if this was a case of piracy or pilot suicide. There are also reports that lithium batteries in the cargo brought down the plane. I could go on and on with the theories, but let's talk about some of these with Todd McGhee. He is the managing partner of Protecting the Homeland Innovations. Thank you so much for joining us. This is such a mystery. I mean, the biggest mystery in aviation history. That's what they're calling it.
Yeah,
what happened to this plane?
Planes just don't drop out of the sky. Planes just don't disappear. Right from the get-go, one of the theories, along with many that are out there, is the aspect of some type of nefarious act. The communications, the sophistication that's within aviation in the 21st century are unprecedented.
Right.
The fact that none of the systems have alerted that there's some type of a problem is really troublesome.
And one of those reports is that they were shutting off, that one transponder was shut off, 15 minutes later another one was, and then you try to go through that in your mind and you say, okay, how does that happen? And is that a human causing that? And the thought of that is frightening.
Well, the fact that, again, we talked about the 2 passengers that had the stolen passports. They're taken out of the scenario. There's no longer much of a focus on them. But there hasn't been much discussion about the pilots. So the investigation team that's in on this investigation hopefully will be able to get a little background so we can get a better understanding, not just of the pilots, but also the flight crew itself.
I think, honestly, at this point, 8 days later, no sign of this plane. I think anything is up for grabs, including people are saying, could this plane have landed somewhere? Is there a chance that this plane landed and that maybe these people are alive?
And we're still waiting for that information to come through, but the issue is that if that is one of the scenarios,
right,
one of the aspects that we're looking at, then some runway, some air traffic control tower would be able to receive that information. This is global information now. This is not isolated to one area. Everyone's looking for this plane.
Why is it taking so long? I mean, it seems unprecedented in terms of any information, any sign.
One of the difficult things as we look at the release of information from the Malaysian government, it's obvious they don't have the sophistication of our NTSB.
And that's one of the reasons why.
And so now we're hoping for our contingency that's abroad, that they're going to be able to go and pull data from all of the records from the air traffic control, the flight, the mechanical records on the plane to understand the good condition or bad condition of the plane, to rule out possible mechanical error. So all this information, we're waiting on outside resources.
Can you just imagine how the family members are feeling? And what do? Do you watch it? Do you listen to every theory? I mean, do you grieve? Do you hope? What do you do?
There's that sense, our human nature is we want to have answers. And what we end up doing is we come up with these hypothetical situations.
Right.
We speculate, just if anything, for peace of mind, to try and get some level of understanding, because this is such a bizarre incident.
It really, really is. And there are no definitive answers. And it feels like 1 minute we're telling people, okay, the plane went this way and then it veered to the left. And then we have to say, oh, wait a minute, it doesn't appear that it veered to the left. It appears that it was here. But this is the information that we're given. It truly is mind-boggling, and yet so intriguing too.
In some of the hypotheticals, some of the realistic hypotheticals is, looking at the flight crew, looking at the pilots, is there some rogue element to them? Also, were they overwhelmed? Was there actual hijackers that stormed the cockpit? That typical scenario that we've seen with the 9/11. The other aspect to bring up, Maria, is 1999, the Payne-Stewart crash. That started off, that plane left Orlando with Payne Stewart, very known golfer, very successful. And what happened was there's this phenomenon that talks about incapacitation of the flight crew due to decompressurization of the cabin.
And that happens very quickly.
Very quickly. And in that same instant, which is similar to Flight 370, the flight continued autopilot until it lost fuel and then crashed in the northwest part of the country. In this particular case, a vast ocean area, the plane potentially in that scenario could have landed and submerged itself underwater.
It's an interesting perspective for sure. Go back to the 9/11 and maybe the thought of that terrorists are involved. Generally, when that happens, the terrorists want you to know that they've done this.
Yes.
There's nothing to indicate that anything was associated with this plane or with any sort of terror attack, correct?
That's correct. And going back to the flight manifest, this was talked about in the first 48 hours of the investigation. We need to look at who purchased tickets, cash, one way, within 24 hours of the flight. Those are the indicators. Those are the things that our training picks up on, that we try to get people to understand what's an anomaly, what falls off of the normal baseline.
Right.
We still haven't heard much information regarding the flight crew or the actual flight manifest.
We were also hearing about pilot suicide and piracy. I mean, that's something they have to look at as well, right?
Exactly. Everything's on the table, unfortunately, regardless of how remote the scenario could play itself out.
I cannot believe that we are still sitting here all of these days later, and we're still talking about the fact that nothing's been found, nothing's been spotted, and there are no answers.
The first 24 to 48 hours in any investigation, whether it's criminal nature or in a case of an accident, are the most critical to gather and glean information from. And here we are again 8 days later. Troubling.
Unbelievable. Excellent interview. I really enjoyed talking with you. Todd McGhee, Managing Partner of Protecting Homeland Innovations. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Maria.
Great. Thank you very much.